have a very special guest today on State and Local. Maybe you were unfortunate enough to have appeared before him in the Wrentham District Court. You've seen him at town meeting as the moderator. You've followed his campaigns. You've seen him around town. He's a consummate local and state rep, still at this moment. My guest is Dan Winslow. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. It took a while to get you, but I'm so glad. You know, the first time I ever heard of you was I had just moved here, and it was probably in '95. And somebody told me the story about the firebomb in the kitchen window. And all I could think of was, my God, where have I moved? And I said, well, did they catch the person? No. I said, well, he's moved away. The victim has moved away. No. And I thought, wow. I said, that's a guy with guts. And that was the first time that I had, I'd ever heard of you. And I was just, and ever since then, I've just thought to myself, wow, that's somebody really has a strong core to hang around after that, Now, they found out who that was, but nothing was ever done?
Well, it was 1990, July 5,
oh, that long
1990.
Ago.
My wife, Susan, was pregnant with our first baby, Parker, who's now 22. It was a terrible experience, but also it was instructive because you never know what you're made of until you're tested.
Right.
But I also realized how much backlash there can be against new thinking, new ideas. And I had been, at the time, the chairman of the town's planning board, and we had put into place a series of what, at the time, were pretty far-reaching reforms. Smart growth zoning, for example, and if you drive around Norfolk in our neighborhoods all link together. You can actually jog or bike or walk your dog in our neighborhoods, and you can walk for miles on secondary roads. That's by design from 20 years ago. If you go to Franklin or Wrentham, for example, there's so many cul-de-sacs that are dead ends and the neighborhoods don't link up. And so new ideas, bigger trees, more trees, underground utilities, having little islands in the roundabouts and things like that. These were things that were considered radical at the time, and they were change. And unfortunately, some people react negatively, and some people even react violently to the notion of change, and that's unfortunate. But it taught me a lesson about having the strength, the value of standing up for what I believe in and not backing down in the face of adversity.
Now, you being president of the planning board also attracted the attention of all people, George Soros, and one of his nefarious groups. Right. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, when I ran for the U.S. Senate, see, politics in the country has just become so nasty that when I announced for the U.S. Senate, a group funded by George Soros came to the town, and they dug through all of the meeting minutes of all of the town meetings and the planning board meetings that I had chaired and that I just voted in. They looked at all my voting record, and okay, that's fine, that's fair game. They looked at my voting record as a voter, and then they looked at my wife's voting record. Now, I'm sorry, my record's fair game, I understand it, but my wife's or my kids' voting records, that's, as far as I'm concerned, out of bounds. But that's how nasty politics has become. And so what they try to do is they try to drive decent people out of politics. I'm stepping out of politics for a little while because I've got to pay the bills, but my hope is that I'll be able to be back and to be able to contribute again.
When you say that, it reminds me, I don't know whether was it the IRS that went into the AP records, the phone records, and then James Rosen from Fox and his parents' phone records.
Yeah, it's an intimidation tactic, and you can't let people bully you or beat you up, or So my view is this. If decent, honest, and hardworking people don't get involved in government, then government won't be decent, honest, and hardworking. And we can't default our democracy to people of of less talent or lower motive.
Absolutely.
Or we have to have good people get involved, and that's what I've done as a hallmark here in town. I'm third generation Norfolk. My grandfather was the warden of MCI Norfolk. My dad was born and raised here. And to me, this is my hometown, my adopted hometown from Amherst, where I grew up as a kid. But the town of Norfolk has allowed me to get in and be engaged in my community and to, I think, make a difference, whether it was at the planning board, at town meeting. As a moderator, we adopted a whole series of reforms to make town meeting more widely available for everybody, that everybody could participate in that. Just 3 or 4 people wouldn't dominate the whole debate. I was highly motivated to make sure that people have a chance to speak and let their views be known.
So isn't that a standard format for people to get up and speak? That wasn't always the case?
Well,
Is that what you're saying?
it was, except that we have time limits, and we also have the yes microphone and the no microphone. And so, if you're lined up at the yes microphone to speak, and there's 30 people lined up behind you, and there's one guy lined up at the no microphone to speak, well, maybe you don't have to say your whole speech.
Right.
We had a series of town meetings before I was moderator, and even after I was moderator, where probably 10 people accounted for 90% of all of the talking. And, not for nothing, there's some folks that have different means of communication, and some folks just like to hear themselves talk.
Yes, oh yes.
And the problem is that we have to engage in an open town meeting. We have to put the town back into town meeting. And one of my proudest moments was my last town meeting as moderator. We had 10% of the registered voters show up to vote. And participate in town meeting. And that was great. We had free spaghetti suppers. We had politicians coming and working the crowds. We had raffle tickets. The funniest one that I saw was we had a prize for a free haircut. And I reached in and we pulled out the winning ticket, and some guy jumped up and he said, I won! He was so excited. He was absolutely bald. Just had no hair. But he was so excited to win something. It was just really
Maybe he got a
hilarious.
treatment.
It was great.
Now, would you like to go back and talk about, were there any, let me ask you this, as far as going on town moderator, were there any interesting things that happened that you recall, anything that any sort of funny or unusual things that happened that you recall?
Oh, sure.
Because, I think to this day, 10%, you're happy to have 10%, but that's still a very low percentage. And it still seems as if you still see people pushing through their agendas and getting up and leaving. You still see that. I guess there's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah, you're always going to have that, I think. But I'm a big believer in direct democracy, whether it's a jury in the judicial branch where you put the power directly in the hands of the people. I have a lot of faith in the people directly. I don't have as much faith the further we remove government from the people. That's why I'm a Republican. I believe in limited, effective government, and that's closest to the people, not big government that's further removed away. I don't like Obamacare for that reason. I was better with Romney care. Personally, I'd rather restore the physician-patient relationship as the core value in medicine. But I like to have government closer to the people. But what was interesting is so much fun stuff would happen, not by design, by the way, at town meeting, but just when you get people in the room. Two examples stand out in my mind. One during the Tiananmen Square sit-in in China before it was crushed. We'd approved the school budget, which was millions of dollars in about 10 seconds. And then we were having this fevered debate whether we should buy or lease a copier for the elementary school. And it was going on for at least an hour. It was maybe, $1,000, but so some fellow stood up at the end of this long hour, and Frank Gross was the moderator. He pointed to the camera from Norfolk Cable that was in the auditorium and said, Mr. Moderator, I hope that camera's got tape in it so we can send it to those kids in China so they can see what they're about to get themselves into, this democracy. And then the other one, we were debating one time, again, Frank was the moderator, about the location of a senior center. We wanted to have land for a senior center so that the seniors would have some place to go. And some very
how long ago would this have been?
Oh, a long time ago. And so some very senior citizen member stood up in the back of the auditorium, and he, people have different ways of making a point. He said, way back when they said we had to spend money on the church downtown to have a place for the old folks to go, and then we spend money at the old town hall so we have a place for the old folks to go, and now we're spending money at the new town hall so we have a place for the old folks to go. Now we want to have money for the senior center so you have a place for the old folks to go. I just got one question. Where am I supposed to go? Which was just great. So, and if you don't go to town meeting, you're missing out on that as well as a chance to shape your town.
Oh, right. Now, what other boards did you serve on? Could you maybe talk about down the years what
Sure.
you
I started out on the Correctional Facilities Citizens Advisory Council, which was the town prison liaison. The prisons are a great resource for our town in terms of labor for cleanup, picking up litter, some basic maintenance. They can actually do sidewalks and basic construction for us if you'd like. They used to clean our town hall, for example. The prisoners did. I don't know if they still do, but they grow pumpkins and vegetables there. What's interesting is that they also have an upholstery shop.
I've gotten some of my furniture taken care
right.
of, but I think that's gone now,
No, it's still there.
Oh,
It's still there on Industrial Road off of Route 1A at the end of the road. And the prices are very competitive, and it gives the guys a chance to learn a skill. So I started there. I then ran for the planning board and proposed a series of reforms for smart growth zoning to
Well,
preserve.
what is that exactly?
It's
Has to do with
basically to have it be a pedestrian friendly, smaller scale, not big box. You know, we're starting to see it now taking shape here in the downtown with Walgreens. You see there's street furniture and benches, and that there's lamps that all match each
Yes,
other.
they're
And
beautiful.
so the whole scale of the downtown was designed to be this way 20 years ago, and we're now just starting to see it take shape, as well as the town
Let me
center.
interrupt you with a question. Why was that horrendous moonscape there for so long? Why was that never? Was the owner held it up?
No, it was a series of, there was bad timing in the marketplace. That used to be woods in the town center. It was beautiful downtown, and the owner came in and clear cut it and was going to put in a strip plaza called Liberty Plaza. And
that was Mr. Musto?
Yes, and it was probably about 4 acres of pavement. The truck loading zone was right by the library where the library addition is now. And then it would have blocked off the 12 acres of land where the condos are now forever. It would have been landlocked.
Now, how long ago were you talking about?
1986, 1986, 87,
okay,
thereabouts.
all right, okay.
But the point is this: that is exactly what our zoning called for. And so zoning should articulate the vision that you have for the town. And
yes.
yet, if you ask people, should we like basically pave downtown Norfolk, and people would almost 90% of them tell you absolutely not. So what I tried to do on the planning board was to make the vision that we have of what we'd like our town to be match the law for what the law requires, and to get rid of the discretion in many cases.
Were you on the planning board at that time?
I was on the town planning board. That's when I ran. And to say, look, instead of having everything be no or special permit in our use table, why don't we make stuff yes, but say specifically how we want our town to take shape? So, for example, I proposed design review. So we have a Dunkin' Donuts that looks like a house that you could live in, and we have other beautiful commercial structures. When I rewrote the zoning at 1A 115, I put in as a matter of right a golf course. I remember this. Somebody said, they were making fun of me at town meeting. They said, "What are you, nuts? Who would ever put a golf course in Norfolk?" So we have a golf course now. So if you say that you can do things.
There's a golf course in Norfolk?
Sure, yeah, Four Kicks. It's a little
okay.
par 3 golf course. Right. Yeah, it's a little par 3 golf course.
Say, my goodness.
I work on my short game. No, I work on my short game. And we also put in, as of right, I think, a car wash. And now a car wash is going in. And so
next to it.
Right next door.
With the 3 bays.
Exactly. And I can't wait to try that out so that I don't have to drive to Walpole or Franklin and wash
Exactly.
my car. And so the idea was, say what you want. Have your zoning match the vision that you want for your town, and then allow people to do it as of right so they don't have all sorts of guessing to do when they try to develop.
But when I first moved here, that was when the Economic Development Committee started. And,
Yes.
and I remember that the reason it started was that people were having so much trouble getting little businesses and little shops approved. And the idea was to have this sort of a roadmap of all the things that you had to do.
Right.
So it seemed to me that it was very hard for businesses to come here, and that the town was not very friendly
Right.
to business. Could you comment on that at all?
Yeah, sure. We'd say, we put the no in Norfolk. Now, on the one hand, we want to make sure that we have high quality development because, especially for people that don't live here, what do they care about our little town? But if you look at our property values in Norfolk, even though we're in the same school system, are higher than Wrentham and higher than Plainville and higher than Millis and higher than Walpole. So these are all adjacent towns that have comparable infrastructure to ours. So why is our town's values holding? That's because we were able to have our law start to match the vision that we have for our town. And what we wanted to do to make it less difficult, less unfriendly for business, was to say to the businesses, look, here's our vision for our town. We want smaller scale. We want something that's attractive. We want something that's pedestrian friendly and the like. But if you build that, the answer is yes. The answer is yes. And we got rid of a lot of the discretion that had been left to the boards 20, 30 years ago, where you would apply to build a business and you wouldn't know at the beginning of the process whether or not you'd actually succeed at the end of the process. Now businesses know that if they build it pursuant to the vision that the town has clearly articulated, the answer is going to be yes.
Well, a lot of the people that we talked to at the EDC, the building was already there. They just wouldn't let them come in. I think somebody wanted to, I can't remember now what it was a while back, but they were saying, well, what was there before was this, and you're that, and And I remember that little strip mall that's there next to Daly's. I mean, I used to look at it and say, my goodness, you know, to me,
Yeah.
it looked like you'd picked it up in Chelsea and dropped it down in Norfolk, and nobody, you know, and I just always used to wonder. And now I guess quite a bit is still empty. But that's
Yeah.
part of that's the owner of the building, right?
Well, I don't know. That building predates even 1986. So that's sort of a legacy building.
Right. That has some of that has to do with the sewer connected. Is that some of it
Right,
too?
right. And we have some challenges because we have private sewer. My hope is that at least the downtown, I had proposed some time ago to have the downtown of Norfolk tied into the state's sewer system. The state prisons actually have a sewer system. And I thought it might make some sense to have us pay a little bit to upgrade to link into their system, and then them run it, because that way we don't have the daily operating costs. But that was an idea we'll have to leave for somebody else.
What happened to that?
It didn't go anywhere. People are frightened about change,
Yes.
and so I got busy with other things. I'm really proud of what I've accomplished here in Norfolk. If you drive through Norfolk, things about the way the town looks and feels and how it's grown, I had a direct hand in shaping.
And that was on the planning board?
Yes.
Now, how long were you on the planning board?
6 years.
Only 6 years?
Yeah.
Now,
I believe in getting something done and then getting the heck out instead of just sitting there and occupying oxygen.
let me ask you a question about, you mentioned the prison. What is the story with the mitigation money? I never quite understood what that was all about. We don't get it anymore, is that right?
We do. We have. We hadn't gotten it before I was state rep. It had gone away, and then I fought to get it reinstated, and I did. We got it for 1 year. I got it for a second year. They took it away. We're going to get it again. Basically, the prisons.
The prison takes it away.
Well, no, the governor or the state legislature.
Okay.
The prisons require town resources, police coverage, fire coverage, ambulance coverage, but they don't contribute anything in the form of property tax.
Right.
And so the idea was that this is a state institution. They're using our resources. They should make some payment in lieu of taxes
to mitigate what the town is
impact on the town. And they have, over the years, pretty consistently they have. So, for example, our town hall was built using prison mitigation money.
Really?
And we've had a lot of benefits from using prison. Yeah, I actually negotiated, I at least started the negotiation for our town hall with Mr. Musto. We got a state grant to improve the road configuration onto his property. And in return for that, he gave us the land for free for our town hall right in the center, as well as the subsequent owner, Mr. Borelli, donated the land for the library expansion. So we've been very lucky to have a good relationship, sometimes contentious, but a good public-private relationship with our builders, our developers, and the residents of this town, because we're all in this together, and if we can collectively make Norfolk a better, more attractive, more charming, more accessible town, then I think we all win.
Now, what do they get in exchange for that?
Well, we put the roads in
Okay.
using state money that Musto would have had to have paid himself.
Oh, okay, all right.
So we basically swapped off and got land in exchange for that. Borelli, I think, got drainage. He got drainage improvements in exchange for the land. So we were able to use, I think, part of Town Hill and part of the library parking lot, which was on our land, for drainage for his land in exchange for picking up actual surface rights for our library. So our downtown is a far different place now than it would have been. My only regret is that we'd actually proposed to have the road go from the top of the bridge, the railroad bridge, directly across, diagonally across, and then have an X intersection or a roundabout right in the center there. But that didn't work out.
But that's very recent, isn't it?
That was
Doesn't that proposal?
1990 thereabouts, 92 thereabouts.
Because I mean, I'm still on the EDC, and they were still talking about a road going from, say, where Peter Chipman's building is there.
Oh, that's the bridge over the railroad tracks.
Right.
Yeah, so that we don't have a dead end in our town center.
Right, but I think that's DOA, right? Or
well, I mean, I got it approved at the state for inclusion in the
remember.
bond,
Yes.
but my view is, as a state legislator, that I will back up the town and back up the residents. You just have to tell me what you want, and I don't think there was a unanimity of consensus from the town about what they did or didn't want. So I'll have to wait further guidance from the town. But the good news is that I got the bridge included in the bond authorization if the
Right,
town
I remember that
the
now.
town ever wants to pursue it.
So that was all approved.
The bond authorization was, and then the town would have to spend some money to do the engineering and the design and things like that.
So was that brought before town meeting?
I don't think it's gone before town meeting yet.
So what's holding that up?
Just
know?
a question of the selectmen have to decide whether or not they want to proceed.
Oh,
and then,
I
and if
see.
they do, they would have to go to town meeting and get some engineering designs, and then go back to the state with a budget. But it's in the bond authorization, which is good news.
Now, where exactly would that have been? Because I never could quite understand
At
that.
Boardman Street, if you go from Boardman Street
Yep.
and go straight across Main Street over
Yes.
the railroad tracks, it would have connected to the back end of the property.
Up over a bridge?
Yeah, there would have been a bridge there.
Oh, that would have been quite a big construction
Yeah,
project,
and
wouldn't
I
it?
personally, I think that our money is probably better spent fixing the bridges that we already have rather than building new bridges. So, for example, the Main Street Bridge that connects Norfolk
Right.
and Franklin by Camger Chemical, by the pond
Yes,
there.
yes.
That bridge is getting pretty ancient, and I think
Yes.
it's actually part of a dike system. So we need to pay attention to that. And I also think that the Miller Street Bridge is getting pretty ancient
yes.
as well. And so to me, in terms of priorities, I think our priority ought to be fixing, and this is not just for Norfolk, it's the whole state. We ought to make sure that we take care of the infrastructure that we have before we start expanding infrastructure.
Because it seems rather crowded over there to put a. I know that they've sort of like a little area there that's was sort of cut in, but then they've got that house right there, the Ivy Music School.
Yeah, it would have been
It's-
right next door to it.
Gosh, that would seem like an awfully crowded area over there.
But I don't think it's going to happen unless the selectmen,
Well,
change
obviously.
their mind or town meeting supports it. For my part, as the state legislator, I was able to get that included in the transportation bond authorization. So it's authorized at the
Yes,
state level.
yes.
It's just a question of putting the pieces together to make it happen, if people want it to.
And how long is that good for?
It's good for quite a while, actually, years.
Now, what other things were there other boards that you worked on?
Yes.
And what else
I
did
was
you?
on the DPW commission for the Department of Public Works. When we transitioned from just a highway, we consolidated all of the commissions together. I don't think we still do this, but one of the things that I was really proud of in that board is we reduced water rates in Norfolk. So we reduced the cost of water. And then we changed, we started to work on, I don't think we finished it. We started to change from a system for the water bans. We got rid of the water ban. We reduced the cost of water in Norfolk because we had a state of permanent water ban, which was crazy. If you have a permanent
Now,
ban,
what years would
people-
these have been?
Oh gosh, it would have been 2006 to 2008.
just
thereabouts.
recently?
Yeah, just before I became a state representative.
And that's no longer the case, because it seemed like every time
No,
you turned
they
around.
put the water ban back on. Yeah, I don't know why. Instead of having a ban, which effectively is unenforceable unless you have neighbors ratting each other out, it's better to declare an emergency and have a higher fee structure so that people automatically have a market incentive not to overwater or overuse water. So, for example, you'd have a regular rate, which is cheap, and then if you declare a water emergency, if some guy wants to go out and water his lawn, that's fine. It'll cost him $100 to water his lawn, rather than saying, well, we're going to fine you $100 if you water your lawn if we catch you. So
I didn't
just
know
assume,
that.
yeah. So that's a bet. I like to use market forces to shape behaviors rather than regulation, because market forces are 24/7.
Right.
Regulation is only as good as its enforcement, and I personally don't like to I think we're over-regulated.
Now, I do too. Now, so does a phone call go out to announce that?
I don't know.
Because I don't remember ever hearing about.
Well, if you drive into Norfolk, you see the signs that say water ban.
Right.
The signs used to say, please conserve voluntarily, and there was a picture of a drip of water.
Yep.
And a logo that said, don't be a drip, save every drop. That was me, by the way. I came up with that.
And where were those signs? I don't think
Those
I've
are
ever
all at
seen.
the downtown. No, every
downtown-
time as you
I know
crossed
they-
in the town borders.
But I know there used to be one at the right there at the prison when you would come
Yeah.
down. I guess that's Winter Street,
Yeah.
and where the other street from I don't even know the names of the streets. I just know how to get right that goes into Norfolk,
Yeah.
to Walpole.
Yeah.
But I never remember seeing that little sign.
Well, they took them down, and now they're replaced by these yellow and white signs that say water ban. But to me, the
And
state
that
of
means that the rate is higher.
No, they decided they went back to the old ban system.
They did.
I don't like that system myself. I'd rather use emergency rates to incent behaviors
I
instead of
agree.
regulation.
And I never knew there was such a thing.
Well, we ought to get rid of permanent water. Permanent water bans are useless because you're in a state of siege, basically. And then at
Exactly.
some point that becomes the norm. Yeah, so, my thought is that using market forces, which we did, but here's the key. When I got on the DPW commission, we got rid of the water ban and we reduced the cost of water in Norfolk. And it's still down compared to what it would have been.
Huh. I did not know. Now, we have a few minutes. Would you care to talk about what's up next for you? Or
Well, I've got
you know,
three tuitions, and
where are your children going to school, if I may?
BU graduate school, Colgate University undergrad, and my youngest son is a senior in high school. So next year he wants to be an engineer. So at least I'll have one kid who's employable after college. But I'll be working as the senior vice president and general counsel of a software company in California. But I'll be
Is that Rimini?
Rimini Street. RiminiStreet.com, and they basically do enterprise software support and maintenance for companies. They have, I think, about 20% of the Fortune 500 companies as clients of theirs, and hundreds of other companies. And they basically figured out a way to do software maintenance support for 50% of the cost that it normally would take. And so there's a lot of businesses, when you're looking to save money in a company, one of the things you can save money on is software maintenance and support.
For your website.
Exactly, and for your whole operations. Enterprise software is everything from soup to nuts, inventory, production, billing, everything. So.
And so will you be moving away, will you be out of town for this job? Will you be traveling very much?
I'll be traveling a lot. A lot. My travels so far, I'm told, will be including the Far East and Europe and South America, North America, so. It's a global company.
So you'll be dealing with those those court systems?
I'll be dealing mostly with contracts, I believe. Negotiating contracts with clients and customers.
In those countries?
In those countries, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Wow, that's very fascinating.
It's going to be a great adventure. My hope is that I can do what I need to do to get the bills paid in the Winslow household, and then maybe 4 years from now, come back to home, to Massachusetts, and to make some contribution in public life.
I just wanted to thank you, because I always noticed that I would always follow you in the Herald, or what the Herald would cover, and I said, gee, he's always doing something. I mean, of course you sent the jars of fluff to, which I thought was great, to send that over to Duval. But I mean, more than that, I just really felt like you really put yourself out there, and you did a good job, and you worked very hard. I mean, because I would always see the mention of this and that, and that meant a lot to me.
Well, thank you, Anne Marie. Well, I have to tell you, one of the great honors of my life was to be the state representative for these towns, and it was the citizens of these towns who elected me and then re-elected me that gave me the chance to go and make a difference. Right. And every day I did that. I remembered who sent me there and why I was there, and I hope that the people
that they often don't do that. I mean, that's the great problem now. Is in the U.S. Congress. I mean, it's just appalling the work that the things that people went through, and then to have them just kind of not stand up the way they should, in my opinion, is really appalling.
I think it's important to use public life to make life measurably better for somebody, not just yourself.
That's right.
And I've been blessed to have these opportunities. I hope once again, and somewhere down the road, I'll be able to step back into public life. And I just have no idea what the future holds.
Well, I'm sure you're not the only one that feels that way. Well, listen, thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. And thank you for watching State and Local. I'm Anne Marie Battistone. You've been watching Norfolk Public Access. My guest today was Dan Winslow, and we wish him all the best.